Chapter 230, Showing Off Skills. Although the improvised tournament was over, Yuna claimed that there was another exciting event happening. That is why, so far, no one has left the training ground. Most spectators looked confused as a weirdo in a green spandex suit stepped forward and took a fighting stance in front of Yuna. Although most people recognized him from the previous tournament, most people never really paid him much attention since he didn't reach very far. Yuna noticed that as well and couldn't help but smirk a little. Instead of saying anything about that, she started talking with Lei. "Well, Lei, it seems like you are still not willing to remove your weights without the proper incentive. I follow the rules I made for myself." Yuna could only shake her head wryly when she heard Lei's words. "I am aware of that, but you'd better not regret it later when the split second it takes you to remove them costs somebody their life. I already gave you a bunch of seals to quicken the process, but it still isn't instant." After pondering Yuna's words for a short moment, Lei's facial expression became serious and he nodded his head. "Actually, I considered deactivating your seals every time I take a mission. Better than nothing, I guess." While Yuna and Lei were talking with each other, the crowd got even more confused. After all, the two people talked as if Lei was fighting while wearing some kind of restrictions, which most of them found beyond weird. Neja, however, was slightly surprised that Lei switched from normal weights to seals. After seeing that she got everyone's attention, Yuna smirked a little and resumed talking. "The person in front of me is called Rock Lei. Some of you might have already heard of him, but he is someone who can only use taijutsu and nothing else." As Yuna expected, the moment she said that, quite a few people were surprised while a few people started looking down on Lei for not being able to use ninjutsu. Yuna's smirk widened as she continued speaking. "He is a failure, right?" As the murmuring in the surroundings grew louder, Lei didn't show the slightest reaction to Yuna's words. He might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but he had a pretty good idea of what Yuna was doing. Without commenting on Yuna's words, he deactivated the seals on his arms and legs and got into his usual fighting stance. A small smile appeared on his face when he felt just how light his body felt after he deactivated the seals. "Well, Lei, how about you show everyone how much of a failure you really are?" The moment Yuna finished speaking, Lei vanished from where he stood, and not even half a second later, a loud boom echoed over the training ground as Lei's fist smashed into Yuna's crossed arms, sending her skidding backward a few meters. The audience's eyes bulged when they saw, or rather, didn't see how Lei moved. One moment he stood still, and in the next moment, he was in front of Yuna and attacked her. Most of the Jonin could still somehow follow Lei's movements, but the Genin had no chance of doing so. Even Neja, with his Byakugan, could barely track Lei's movements. He could only stare in bewilderment at what he just witnessed. Although he knew that Lei, without his weights, was fast, it was never this extreme. Usually, he could at least follow Lei's movements with his Byakugan. While the audience stared at Lei in wonder, a long staff entirely made out of ice appeared in Yuna's hands, while a face-splitting grin appeared on her face. "Hee, your improvement is as ridiculous as always. Come, Lei. Yosh, I will show you my youth." Both of them got into a fighting stance and disappeared in the next moment, just to reappear in the center of their previous positions. No, to be exact, they were slightly closer to Yuna's initial position, meaning that Lei was marginally faster than Yuna. In fact, if it were only a contest of speed and strength, Lei would be superior to Yuna. While Lei spent pretty much his whole day improving his body, breaking through his limits, again and again, Yuna had to concentrate on multiple different things at once, so it couldn't be helped that Lei's physical abilities were superior to Yuna's. That, of course, didn't mean that Yuna would lose in a pure taijutsu fight. She still had the upper hand in battle experience and skill, but every time they fought, Lei was getting a little closer to defeating Yuna in their contest. Additionally, Yuna wouldn't use Kurama's chakra, and in return, Lei wouldn't open any of the gates. Neja, meanwhile, was watching the fight unfolding in front of him with bulging eyes. Up until now, he thought that he could fight Lee as long as he didn't open more than one gate, but today he was proved wrong. Winning against the current Lee would be almost impossible. Guy saw Neja's current condition and could only shake his head while smiling wryly. After the Chunin exams, Lee's strength went through explosive growth. I am sure you still remember what Yuna said to him during their match, and I am pretty sure that is part of the reason why he suddenly started growing stronger at such an insane pace. The other reason is, without a doubt, his frequent fights against Yuna. Neja still remembered Yuna's domineering words from that day, and he also remembered how he scoffed at her in Lee's dreams when they shouted them out to the crowd. However, he realized that the duo's words might not have been as empty as Neja thought they were. Neja's gaze returned to the jewel, and yet again, his eyes widened in surprise. While he wasn't looking, one end of Yuna's staff turned pointy and sharp, transforming it into a spear. Now, instead of Yuna's previous movements that were based on twirling the staff around with as much momentum as possible, she was keeping Lee at a distance with wide swings and powerful stabs, abusing the range advantage a spear had against bare hands. However, that wasn't even the end of it. The moment Lee got too close to Yuna, the spear's other end changed as well, while it split in the middle, turning it into two very short spears, which, moments later, turned into two swords. As the fight continued, Yuna's weapons, which were entirely made out of her ice, kept constantly changing forms. Despite continually changing weapons, Yuna used every single one of them proficiently, while her weapons' transformations were always flawless without producing the slightest flaw in her rhythm. Seeing the spectacle in front of him, Neja had only one thing to say. She is a monster. Ha ha ha, she is. If it is about skill alone, even I am not her match. Neja's head snapped towards Guy, Konoha's greatest taijutsu specialist, in disbelief. Ha ha ha, considering Lee's growth, it is only a question of time before he surpasses me, ha ha ha. Although Neja looked at Guy in disbelief for a while longer, when his gaze returned to the fight, his face paled as he realized what Guy meant. Despite Yuna's incomprehensible fighting style, Lee wasn't one-sidedly getting pushed back. Lee was keeping up with her. No, he wasn't just keeping up with her, he would even occasionally push her back a little. For some reason, the words Lee said during his fight with Yuna in the preliminaries of the Chunin exam were suddenly echoing through his head. My youth will burn brightly. I will become the strongest. At that time, he only chuckled and dismissed Lee's words as his usual nonsense. However, now, they sent a shudder through his spine. For some reason, he felt like a vast chasm in skill and power just opened up between Lee and him. Chapter 231, Another Tao appears. A small smile appeared on Lee's face while he was blocking yet another one of Yuna's attacks. Although Lee did enjoy fighting, his battles against Yuna were on a completely different level in that regard. When he fought people like Naruto or Guy, the battles are always, to some degree, similar to the previous one he had with that person. However, against Yuna, that wasn't the case at all. At first glance, it might look like Yuna was using one fighting style that incorporated multiple weapons, but that wasn't the case at all. She had one or more fighting styles for every weapon and smoothly chained them together, resulting in a frankly ridiculous amount of possible combinations. Would a sword turn into another sword? Or maybe an axe? A spear? One would never know. At first, Lee was utterly overwhelmed by that, but he has gotten rather used to it by now. Lee dodged another spear swipe and closed in on Yuna. Just like he expected, the spear changed forms yet again, but Lee dove in anyway. When he saw what Yuna's spear had changed into, however, his eyes widened and he immediately retreated. A small bloody gash appeared on his cheek while he frowned at the weapon Yuna was currently holding. A huge sword that was even bigger than Yuna herself. Lee had realized that Yuna could, for some reason, use every weapon with more or less the same, very high, proficiency a long time ago. He also realized that the way the weapons Yuna created looked was almost always different. Sometimes a spear was a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, stuff like that. Additionally, Yuna's weapons were always plain weapons without any decorations. All of that had one exception. The sword Yuna was currently holding. It always looked exactly the same. Unlike the other weapons that looked like they were cast from a mold, this sword looked like it was rigorously crafted. And most importantly, Yuna's skills with it were utterly absurd. This wasn't the first time Yuna and Lee fought to a standstill, but every time Yuna created the sword she was currently holding, things would go downhill for Lee. Lee vanished from where he stood, and moments later, his fist shot towards Yuna. Yuna blocked Lee's fist with the flat side of her sword and gave it a minuscule twist to disperse the force. The next moment, Lee hastily bent backwards to dodge the blade that was aiming for his neck. Although Yuna would obviously not kill him, but the moment Yuna had to stop her attack to save him, it was his loss. Although it was only a single exchange that didn't even last a second, that single moment was already more stressful for him than the previous 10 minutes of constant fighting. A smoke appeared on Yuna's face as she pointed the tip of her sword at Lee. "What's wrong, Lee?" Intimidated. The pressure Lee felt grew some more, but despite that, the fire in his eyes started burning even more brilliantly while the smile on his face widened. "Of course not. My youth is still burning brightly." "Haha, I knew you would say that. Come." The fight continued for another 5 minutes until Yuna stopped her sword just before cutting into Lee's neck. After realizing that he had lost, Lee fell backward and landed on his butt while supporting his upper body with his arms. I lost again." "Ha ha ha, you did, but trust me when I say that you are getting stronger every time we fight." Instead of answering Yuna's words, Lee only nodded his head. He was fully aware of that. He couldn't explain it himself, but after accepting Yuna's words regarding his dream and declaring it in front of everyone, he felt like he had become a new person. The weight of his weights that previously kept growing bigger at a slow pace was now increasing at a ridiculous rate. Whenever he raised the level of Yuna's weight seals, he could barely move, but he would get used to it in a matter of weeks. Previously, such a significant increase would have taken him months to get used to. After Yuna gave Lee a hand to help him stand up, Yuna let her gaze wander over the crowd. Or, to be more precise, over those people that were previously looking down on Lee. The moment they saw Yuna's mocking facial expression, they immediately averted their eyes and looked away. Yuna chuckled when she saw that and resumed speaking. "A lot of shinobi see those that are significantly stronger than them despite being the same age as some kind of unreachable geniuses. She is a genius, so it can't be helped that she is stronger. Only a genius like her could do that. I am not a genius, so I can't reach her level. A lot of you must have thought like that about me, right? And frankly, considering all the advantages I have had since birth, I can't blame you for thinking like that. But I think this fight demonstrated rather well that even those born without any incredible ability could reach very high. No ninjutsu, no jinjutsu, just taijutsu. Does a single person in this crowd dare to claim that he was born with worse conditions for becoming a shinobi than Lee? Furthermore, does a single person in this crowd, who is similar to Lee in age, think they could defeat Lee in a fight? Following Yuna's words, an oppressive silence descended onto the crowd. After letting everyone stew a little longer, a relaxed smile appeared on Yuna's face. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Talent is not everything. Hard work trumps over lazy talent." Seeing that at least a few people accepted her words, Yuna nodded in satisfaction. She was just about to end the gathering when a loud voice echoed over the training ground. "Guy-sensei, although I lost yet again, my youth is still burning brightly. Yosh! As punishment for losing, you will walk 1,000 rounds around Konoha on your hands. As your youthful sensei, I will naturally go through the same punishment. Guy-sensei." "Lee." Before Yuna could understand what was going on, Lee and Guy started hugging, while the illusion of a sunset on an idyllic beach appeared behind them. "What the hell? Kurama, why did you suddenly start flaring your chakra? Are you an idiot?" It's obviously to get out of this genjutsu. Yuna's face became deadpan when she heard Kurama's words. This is not a genjutsu. How is this not a genjutsu? It's terrifying. Yuna couldn't help but chuckle a little when she heard Kurama's words. Well, I wouldn't exactly call it terrifying, but two men with extra thick eyebrows and a bowl cut that are hugging each other in front of a sunset while wearing extra tight, grain, spandex suits is indeed a sight to behold. If this isn't a genjutsu, then what is it? A mysterious smile appeared on Yuna's face before she answered Kurama's question. It's the Tao of Youth. Are you shitting me? Chapter 232, Start of the First Test. A few more days passed, and it was finally time for the Chunin exams to start. The last few months had been the best and the worst in Hisoka's new life. The best, because she could finally release some of her accumulated anger towards the Hyuga clan. While she was together with Yuna, she could rant about them however much she wanted without the Hyuga clan ever finding out about it. Additionally, her strength was increasing rapidly since Yuna started teaching her, and she even got a chance to have a proper fight against Neja, which she managed to win. She thought that Neja would be angry about losing, but he readily accepted his loss. The reason why they were the worst months of her life was partially related to her increase in strength. Yuna's training regime was insane. No, Yuna herself was insane. By now, Hisoka was almost certain that Yuna was a reincarnated person, but instead of having been a human, Hisoka was sure that she was a demon in her previous life. Hisoka and her team were currently walking towards the venue where the first test would be held, and Hisoka couldn't help but frown while thinking about the Chunin exams. She was sure that these exams happened in the story she knew as well, but she could remember almost nothing about them. She had a vague memory that someone will attack Gaara, but that is pretty much all she got. She consulted Yuna about it, and she actually knew more about it. Gaara has recently become the new Kazekage, and there are a lot of people who aren't happy about it. Yuna somehow managed to procure information that people will try to get rid of him. Hisoka had no idea how she got it, but Yuna seemed to have secret intel about a lot of stuff that nobody should know about. For example, she casually told Hisoka that the current Tsukikage hurt his hip so badly that he couldn't move for a week, a few months ago. The strongest person in the country being out of commission for a week was a secret no one should know about, but Yuna talked about it like it was just some funny gossip she picked up. A while later, the trio reached their destination, and after registering themselves, they entered a big building. Here, they were told to draw lots, resulting in Hisoka pulling out the number 1, Karen the 2, and Sai the 3. Apparently, they were supposed to split up and head to the room with their respective number on it. The moment they heard that they were supposed to split up, Hisoka and Sai looked at Karen, who had already taken out a small paper tag and started drawing seals on it. After a few seconds of writing, she handed the finished tag towards Hisoka and started creating a second and then a third one. All three injected their chakra into the seal tag, and moments later, they could talk with each other using the seal. Although the seal only had a range of about 50 meters, it was more than enough for the current situation. After separating, they went to their respective rooms, and after greeting the people they knew while checking out the competition, they sat down and waited for the first test to start. Moments later, the door closed, signaling the start of the first test. The TV in the room was turned on, revealing Shikamaru's bored-looking face. He started explaining the rules with an equally bored tone, and after finishing that, a 30-minute timer was started. The rules were relatively simple. Everyone got the same 3 questions. They were only allowed to answer one of these 3 questions. The questions would grant 30, 40, and 50 points, respectively. Their team's combined points were not allowed to be higher than 100. In the end, the average score will be calculated, and everyone under that score will be disqualified. Hisoka couldn't help but chuckle a little when she heard the rules. This would have been rather tricky if Karen didn't give them the communication seals before the start of the test. After a short conversation with Karen and Sai, Hisoka casually solved the 40-point question and was done with this part of the exam after about 1 minute. Meanwhile, in the monitoring room for the exam, Shikamaru and Temari were sitting next to each other and watching the examinees. When Shikamaru saw that Yuna's genin instantly started writing, a frown appeared on his face. Temari noticed his frown and couldn't help but be curious about it. "What's wrong? Did something go wrong?" After hearing Temari's words, Shikamaru shook his head in denial. "Not really. It's just that Yuna's students started writing pretty much instantly. I wonder if Yuna did anything to help them. Oh my, that is just rude. There is no way someone as honest as me would even consider cheating Tilda. God damn it, Yuna. Is it really necessary for you to sneak around like that?" "Yes." A groan escaped Shikamaru's mouth when he heard Yuna's answer and saw her happy smile. Meanwhile, Temari could only look at Yuna, completely dumbfounded. The room they were in had only a single entrance, a locked door. She had no idea how Yuna got into the room without making a single sound. Even if she lockpicked the door, shouldn't that have at least made some noise? Although she might be just a tune-in, as someone who uses wind chakra, she was somewhat sensitive to wind and sound, so it should be impossible for her not to hear someone lockpicking the door of the room she was currently in. "Are you aware that Jonin-sensei are not supposed to be here?" "Yep." As Yuna answered Shikamaru's question, a chair appeared in her hand, and she casually placed it next to Shikamaru and sat down on it. Another groan escaped Shikamaru's mouth when Yuna sat down next to him. The moment Yuna sat down, Temari's brain finally managed to understand the situation. "Shikamaru, shouldn't we kick her out? Why are you acting like you're allowing her to remain?" Shikamaru only scoffed when he heard Temari's words. "Kick her out? Sure, good luck with that. The only one in the village who might hold minuscule sway over Yuna is Tsunezama, and I very much doubt she would be willing to annoy Yuna over something so insignificant. Well, her harem and brother might be able to do so as well, but I doubt they would bother. In fact, I am certain that at least Naruto and Anko would happily sit down next to her." Temari looked at Yuna in disbelief when she heard Shikamaru's words. She knew about Yuna's rampant personality, but she didn't think it would be this bad. Before she could say anything, Yuna had something else to add to Shikamaru's words. "Yeah, Shikamaru is correct. Besides, I already handed some brib *** gifts to Tsunade so she wouldn't bother me." While Shikamaru only rolled his eyes at Yuna's words, Temari's face paled. Yuna casually confessed that she was bribing the Hokage, but Shikamaru only rolled his eyes like there was nothing special about that, which probably meant that it was a common occurrence. Just how much power does she hold over Konoha? This is ridiculous. Chapter 233, Explaining the First Test. By the way, you still haven't answered whether you helped out your genin or not, Yuna. I haven't? Pretty sure I have. I didn't help them. Karen has reached a high enough level in seals to create a communication seal by herself. Pretty sure she just made 3 of them when she realized that they would be separated. Temari's eyes widened in surprise when she heard that Karen created not 1 but 3 communication seals in such a short time period. Is it really possible to create a seal that fast? Didn't she simply prepare them before the start of the first round? Maybe. Maybe she already had them with her, or perhaps she created them, I have no idea. As for whether it is feasible or not to create them that fast, Yuna's right hand blurred, and moments later, a complex seal was drawn into the air. It is possible. There is a reason why the Uzumaki are the only clan capable of creating seals mid-combat, after all. Temari could only look at the freshly created seal in a daze. As far as she knew, seals are not something that is supposed to be made so casually. When she thinks about people who create seals, she thinks of old men sitting in a dusty room while slowly and meticulously drawing the seals, and not about young women casually drawing them instantly. When Yuna previously used a seal to stop Gaara's sand, she thought that she had prepared it beforehand, but maybe that wasn't the case. While Temari was sinking deeper and deeper into contemplation, Shikamaru realized something else. Why are you even here? I don't think it would be very interesting for you to watch this round. Yuna couldn't help but chuckle when she heard Shikamaru's words. She let her gaze wander over the monitors in the room before stopping at one of them. Yuna moved her hand and pointed at the monitor. Or, more precisely, she pointed at one of the people visible on the monitor. It was a young woman with brown skin and green hair. I am here because of her. Shikamaru looked at the young woman and then back at Yuna and back at the woman again. Do you really need to hunt for new members for your harem during the Chunin exams? Yuna laughed out loud when she heard Shikamaru's words. Ha ha ha, that is not what I am talking about. She is a Jinchuriki, so I decided to keep an eye on her. Excuse me, could you repeat that? I must have misheard you. Temari also woke up from her contemplations when she heard Yuna's words and was now looking at her with wide-open eyes. You heard correctly. She is a Jinchuriki. The one of the Nanabi, to be precise. Shikamaru and Temari both paled when they heard Yuna's words. Isn't that bad? Shouldn't we inform Tsunade-sama? Yuna only shrugged her shoulders when she heard Shikamaru's words. Considering my gift to her was alcohol, I doubt she is currently in a state where she can give qualified orders. Oops. Shikamaru groaned yet again when he heard Yuna's words. What in the world are you planning, Yuna? No clue yet. For now, I will wait and see if anything interesting happens. You don't need to worry about her too much. Unlike a certain village, I don't think Takidakiya sent their Jinchuriki here with bad intentions, and even if she starts something, I can seal her easily. While Temari scowled in annoyance at Yuna's jab, Shikamaru relaxed a little. Right, she and Naruto already got rid of a rampaging Bizu once each. Using the Flying Thunder God seal, Naruto can be here instantly, and Yuna already has her eyes on the girl, so there should be no problem. So troublesome. Whatever, it is not like I can stop you anyway. Shikamaru, is that really all right? Yeah. Yuna might be the most troublesome person in the village, but she certainly is reliable. You might want to inform your Kazekage, though. Temari didn't understand how Shikamaru could trust Yuna enough to allow something like this, but since it was currently Konoha's problem, she wouldn't care about it either. She would have to inform Gaara about this as soon as the first test was over. It takes about 3 days to travel from here to the next test site, so Gaara would have plenty of time to make preparations. While Shikamaru and Temari were talking with each other, Yuna looked over the rules of the first test and couldn't help but chuckle a little. What an interesting test. You accuse me of helping my genin, but aren't you setting things up so everyone passes, Shikamaru? While Temari wasn't sure what Yuna was talking about, Shikamaru nodded his head. As expected, you saw through it, huh? Well, it's just a little test to see who has the capabilities to become a leader of a bigger group of people instead of just a small shinobi squad. I have prepared another test after this one and a third one to reduce the number of teams to 10 before the official second test starts. Yuna nodded her head in understanding, while Temari had a frown on her face. She frowned not only because she couldn't read Shikamaru's true intention, but also because Yuna saw through them, while she couldn't. What do you mean by everyone passes? As I see it, only very few people have the capability to communicate with each other while they are in different rooms. You are correct, but that wasn't what this test was about in the first place. Despite being a lazy bum, Shikamaru seems to have put quite a lot of thought into this test. At first, it appears that this test is about communicating with your teammates despite them being in different rooms, but that is a rather specialized skill, so it would be incredibly unfair to test people in that regard. This is just a tune-in exam and not some kind of specialized communication sensor shinobi test. Considering how there are only 3 options to choose from, it is enough to communicate only a minuscule amount of information to your teen. For example, if we 3 were part of this exam and I would somehow manage to communicate the number 40 to you, nothing else, what would you do? Temuri's eyes shone in understanding when she heard Yuna's explanation. I see. Due to your message, I would know that you will answer the question that will give 40 points, so the only option Shikamaru and I have left would be to answer the questions that would get us 30 points each to reach the 100-point mark. Correct. Although there will still be some trouble communicating with people in different rooms, I don't think it will be that hard to do. Although I am pretty sure the rooms are more or less sound isolated, there should be plenty of methods to send such a basic message into another room. For example, one could hit the wall 4 times to send the message or raise 4 earth pillars in front of the building. The real problem is controlling the crowd so they don't mess up your plan. Since every person in the other rooms would get the signal, it should benefit everyone, making it relatively easy to convince the crowd. Chapter 234, Moaning in the Control Room. The first test continued, and a few minutes later, someone became desperate and started simply calling his teammate's name out loud. Although it was possible to hear someone calling from another room, it was impossible to hear what he was actually saying. The result? Many people desperately called out names and numbers, making it completely impossible to understand even a single word. Seeing the spectacle unfolding, Yuna could only shake her head. How about failing everyone that is currently screaming at the top of their lungs? People that lose their composure so quickly have no business becoming a chunin, in my opinion. Shikamaru chuckled when he heard Yuna's words and nodded his head in agreement. Although I agree, I won't fail them. If all the stupid ones are out, it would be too easy to take the group's lead. Yuna gave him a nod and continued watching the spectacle. Just as Yuna and Shikamaru predicted, someone took the lead and started talking to the other people in the room. That person was Neji. He explained to everyone that he would hit the wall 4 times to let the other 2 rooms know that everyone in his room will answer the 40 points question. While that happened, Shikamaru eyed him with suspicion. It seems like Neji has changed a little. The old him wouldn't have been willing to patiently explain his plan and even help the other people in the process. Always interesting to see how a good, old-fashioned beatdown can change a person. Despite agreeing, neither Shikamaru nor Temuri commented any further on what Yuna just said. When Neji was about to start his plan, someone else interrupted him and offered to do it instead. Well, that guy is seriously subtle. I will just make a wild guess and say that he wants to sabotage Neji's idea. While Yuna and Shikamaru chuckled a little, a frown appeared on Temuri's face. The person who interrupted Neji was, after all, from Suna, just like her. If Neji's plan only benefited Konoha's shinobi, she wouldn't mind the sabotage attempt, but people from his own village would also be negatively affected if he were to succeed. Neji easily allowed the other person to take his place, and moments later, he started hitting the wall, sending vibrations through the whole building. Instead of doing with 4 times, however, he hit the wall 5 times. 3 simultaneous slaps echoed through the monitoring room as Yuna, Shikamaru, and Temura facepalmed. What is that idiot doing? What's the point of doing 5 hits instead of 4? At least make it 6. With 5, the message simply changed from "I will do the 40 points question" to "You two will do the 50 points question." And look at how smug he is looking at Neji. Damn, that face is basically begging for a beating. Good *, although I agree, please control yourself, Yuna. While Yuna and Shikamaru were talking, Temuri had a scowl on her face. She wanted to get angry at Yuna for making fun of one of her fellow shinobi, but no matter how she looked at it, Yuna's words were correct. In fact, her hands were also itching to dish out a beating. After the person that tried to mess with Neja's plan realized that his action was utterly pointless, he turned towards the wall and hit it 4 times, so the people in the other rooms would get confused, just for Neja to give it an additional hit, making it 5 again. He tried again, this time only hitting the wall thrice, just for Neja to add 2 hits, bringing it to 5 again. Temari couldn't help but blush a little when she saw the shameful display someone from her village was currently showing. She already decided to have a very intense conversation with that person when they are back in Synacadia. I wonder why he hasn't tried more than 5 hits yet. Hearing Yuna's words, Temari couldn't help but groan in shame. It was already pretty bad that Neja so easily tricked him, but the fact that he tried another 2 times without even changing up his strategy in the slightest made it even worse. Moments later, the person snapped and pointed a kunai at Neja, causing Yuna to grin. Since fighting is forbidden during the first test, he will be disqualified the moment he attacks. If that happens, you won't mind if I collect him for a little discussion, would you? Shikamaru glanced at Temari and received an indifferent shrug from her. Since he was someone from Suna, Temari was the one who had the last word about it. Since Temari didn't care, Shikamaru wouldn't either. Unfortunately, Neja had other plans as he pointed at the no fighting sign hanging on one of the walls. Proctor, are you going to allow a fight? If you don't answer, I will assume you do. Yuna scowled in annoyance at Neja diffusing the fight, while Shikamaru couldn't help but chuckle a little. Seems like he wants to force me to make a move as a little extra confirmation that I am not the one that was sending the signal. Shikamaru leaned forward and activated the microphone. The moment he did, a mischievous glint appeared in Yuna's eyes that neither Shikamaru nor Temari noticed. I made it clear that the first round is a written exam. Fighting is prohibited. Stop that racket and answer the cues. While Shikamaru was talking, Yuna slowly moved closer to him, and when she was in the perfect position, she changed her voice to match Temari's and started speaking just loud enough for the microphone to barely pick it up. Moan Shikamaru, it's so big. It was as if the air solidified. No one was moving as every attending genin was looking at the speaker in bewilderment. Temari and Shikamaru, naturally, froze up and were looking at Yuna in total disbelief. It took Shikamaru's brain around 1 second to reboot, and when it did, he realized that he needed to say something as fast as possible to defuse the situation. Luckily, it was relatively easy to explain the current situation. Damn it, Yuna, when did you get here? Could you stop playing your tricks just once? As soon as he finished speaking, he deactivated the microphone so Yuna would have no chance to mess around any further. Some outsiders might still think that something fishy was going on, but those who have dealt with Yuna before should understand the situation without a problem. Troublesome. Was that really necessary? That's a stupid question, of course it was. Shikamaru murmured another troublesome before putting his focus back on the monitors. Meanwhile, Temari was opening and closing her mouth like a fish out of water. She heard about Yuna's tendencies to mess with people no matter the consequences, but she didn't expect it to be this bad. The daughter of the previous Keisuke having an affair while she was supposed to monitor the Chunin exams was no joke. Luckily, Shikamaru reacted quickly, or things might have become complicated. Did Yuna predict that Shikamaru would react and played the prank due to that, or did she do it simply because she thought it would be funny? If it is the second answer, then Yuna is a walking bomb that could explode at any moment. If it is the first, then she is just annoying to deal with, but not too dangerous. Chapter 235, End of the First Test. After another 10 minutes of waiting, the first part of the first exam was over. Although Yuna couldn't be certain, she was pretty sure that most people decided to follow Neja's solution. While everyone was happy that they were done, a smirk appeared on Shikamaru's face, and he was just about to activate the microphone again before he stopped and glanced at Yuna. Yuna chuckled a little and answered his unasked question. I swear I won't do it again. Although Shikamaru still had some doubts about that, he decided to trust Yuna for now and activated the microphone. Second part of the first exam. A single question. Your team is on a mission and the enemy spots you. In order to shake them off, you need to leave one of your teammates behind as a decoy. Who will you choose despite knowing that they will face certain death? Write your answer on the back of your sheet. To pass, all three of you need to have the same answer. The teammate you choose will be eliminated from the exam. You have 3 minutes. The moment Shikamaru turned off the microphone, Yuna couldn't help but whistle in surprise. That's quite devious, Shikamaru. I could never come up with something like that. Hearing Yuna's words, Shikamaru only scoffed in disdain. He was pretty sure that if Yuna were to design one of the tests, it would end with at least half the people having a breakdown and crying. Well, assuming we three were in a team, what would you write down, Yuna? Oh? Are you testing me? Do you want the correct answer, no one, or do you want me to say what I would actually do in that situation? Why not humor me with what you would do? A wide smile appeared on Yuna's face as her battle intent started oozing out. I will stay back and slaughter everyone who dares to approach me until no one is left. Certain death. Hee, I have faced worse odds and still survived. Shikamaru and Temari couldn't help but shiver a little when Yuna's battle intent washed over them, while her slightly insane smile wasn't helping either. I shouldn't have asked. I wonder when she faced such a dangerous situation, though. As far as I know, no villagers were wiped out, and neither were any Kage assassinated for a while now. Well, the previous Kage was killed, but that was Orochimaru and not Yuna. Now that I think about it, the previous Mizukage was killed as well, and this time it actually was Yuna. Aren't Kage getting killed off a little too frequently? Oh well, it's too troublesome to give that any more thought. Besides, who knows what kind of outrageous missions Yuna has been taking. The 3 minutes passed and the first test was finally over. Everyone gathered outside the building while Shikamaru and Temari were waiting on a small stage for everyone to gather. Temari could feel that a few people were looking at her weirdly, but she ignored all of that while cursing Yuna in her mind. After everyone was here, Shikamaru explained that the next test could only be taken as a team of 3, so everyone who decided to sacrifice a teammate in the first test was automatically disqualified. Although this caused another uproar, Shikamaru couldn't care less. After Shikamaru was done with his explanation, Temari started explaining the next part of the exam. Since there were too many people left, an additional test will take place. A race to the second exam site. Only the first 10 teams to arrive will be allowed to continue the exams. After she finished describing the next test, she simply stopped talking. Most people were confused by that, but after a short time, Ninja's eye widened before he quickly dragged his team away. Simultaneously, Karen's eyes shone in understanding as well as she started pulling Hisoka and Sai away. Slowly but surely, everyone realized that the next part of the exam had already started. About a minute later, the field in front of Shikamaru and Temari became devoid of people. Yuna appeared next to the duo, causing Temari to flinch, while Shikamaru didn't show any reaction. Well, what do you plan to do now, Yuna? Yuna chuckled and pulled out one of her snowflake-like kunai. Well, I can get there anytime, so I guess I will relax for 2 days and then teleport over. Shikamaru scowled in annoyance before nodding his head in understanding, while Temari wasn't happy either. I need to be there as well. Can you take me with you? Hearing Temari's words, Yuna chuckled a little before nodding her head. Sure, but I want something in return. What do you want? I have heard that Suna doesn't want Konoha's shinobi to proctor the second part of the exams. Despite that, I want to be one of the proctors. Temari frowned when she heard Yuna's words. What Yuna just said was supposed to be a secret, so she had no idea how Yuna got that information. Despite that, she shook her head in denial. Sorry, but that is impossible. The second test will take place in the Desert of Death. That place can even get dangerous for our own shinobi, so we can't have non-participants that don't know the terrain entering. Yes, I heard about that excuse. Unfortunately, I know the real reason why you want to keep Konoha's shinobi out of this event. Although Temari didn't show anything on her face, she couldn't help but get nervous when Yuna mentioned the real reason why Suna didn't want to involve any of Konoha's shinobi. Although officially, this time's Chunin exams were supposed to be a bait to lure the members of Akatsuki out, the real purpose was actually to bait out the people that want to rebel against Gaara. Yuna leaned forward a little so she could whisper into Temari's ear without Shikamaru listening in. I wonder what would happen to your little plan of baiting the rebels if I were to expose it beforehand. Temari instantly took a step back and looked at Yuna in surprise. How in the world do you know about that? Because the privacy seals you bought from us are spying on you. I didn't know about it, but your reaction confirmed my guess. Temari's mouth gaped open while looking at Yuna in disbelief. Shikamaru, who was standing next to her, couldn't help but chuckle when he saw Temari's facial expression. You walked straight into that. Temari closed her mouth and glared at Shikamaru, who only shrugged his shoulders in indifference. No need to glare at me, Yuna is the one who tricked you, not me. After hearing his words, Temari changed the target of her glare from Shikamaru to Yuna, who was currently giving her a smug smile. After glaring a bit longer, Temari sighed in resignation while raising her hands in defeat. Fine, I will see what I can do. Since you know about it already, I don't think Gaara will mind involving you further. Very good. That should be fun. Although another groan escaped Temari when she heard Yuna's words, she didn't comment on it further. She still had to send a message about the appearance of a Jinchuriki. Additionally, for her mental stability, she would rather not mingle too much with Yuna. Chapter 236, Meeting Foe. 3 days passed and a total of 30 people were gathered in front of a fortress-looking building. While people with a lot of stamina like Lee and Karen weren't even out of breath, quite a few people were on the brink of total exhaustion. Moments later, the building's door opened and Yuna stepped out of it with a casual smile on her face. As she predicted, Gaara easily allowed her to be part of the overseers of the second test. Yo, good job making it here. My name is Yuna, and I will be the proctor of the second exam. The faces of a few people from Konoha paled when they heard that Yuna would be the proctor of the second exam, while a single person had something else to say. *TSK*, what is going on in this exam? Why are all the proctors young brats? Although he only murmured these words quietly, Yuna could still hear him easily. Seemingly without any action from Yuna, 4 ice spears shot out of the ground. 3 stopped just before piercing his neck, while the last one was about to penetrate a different place. The crowd could only look dumbfoundedly at what just happened. The ice appeared instantly and without any indication from Yuna. No one present had the confidence to evade an attack like that. Well, any more complaints? Since he could feel the ice spears touching his neck and butt, he could only do a minuscule head shake to answer Yuna's question. The moment he did, the 4 ice spears melted away instantly. The moment the ice was removed, his legs faltered and he fell on his butt, with cold sweat still flowing down his back like a river. One of his teammates approached him to help him up and whisper something to him at the same time. Are you insane? That is Yuno Uzumaki, an S-rank League Jonin that killed the previous Mizukichi. After hearing the words of his teammate, a shiver went through his spine as he took another glance at Yuna, just to meet her eyes. When he saw Yuna smirking at him, he immediately averted his gaze. Yuna could only shake her head at the person's behavior. Since her name appeared in the bingo book, everyone could easily gather information about her. Someone who didn't even bother to remember the appearance of people who were an S-rank threat is not fit for the work of a shinobi. Yuna was just about to continue her explanation when a young woman with brown skin and green hair approached her with sparkling eyes. That was awesome. How did you do that? Will you be my friend? Yuna was a little surprised that the Jinchuriki she wanted to observe approached her without the slightest hint of caution, but after thinking about her question for a moment, Yuna simply shrugged her shoulders. Sure, let's become friends. As I have already mentioned, my name is Yuna. The woman's eyes immediately lit up in excitement when she heard Yuna's words. Ha ha ha, awesome. I already made my first friend. There are just 99 to go. Ah, I almost forgot, my name is Fu. Yuna was just about to ask what she meant by just 99 to go when Fu's teammates appeared and dragged her away. Fu, you shouldn't get too close to her, she is dangerous. What do you mean by dangerous? She agreed to become my friend, so isn't it fine? Absolutely not. You need to stay away from her. Seeing Fu getting dragged away by her two teammates who were clearly at the level of Jonin instead of Genin, Yuna's curiosity was sparked. Yuna shook her head to get rid of her idle thoughts and continued addressing the people in front of her. Anyway, all of you must be hungry and tired, so please come in. Dinner has already been prepared. The rules of the next test will be explained tomorrow morning. Everyone sighed in relief that there wasn't yet another test and entered the building Yuna came out of. A slight smirk appeared on her face as her eyes lingered on Fu, and moments later, she vanished from where she stood and silently followed Fu's tail. When Fu reached her room, her two teammates instantly closed the door and put a lock with thick chains on it. Oi! What are you doing? Open the door. Sorry, Fu, but she will have to stay in there until tomorrow morning. Eh? Why? We never know what you will do next. Who knows what kind of chaos you will cause if you are allowed to roam freely? Huh? What? Doesn't that mean I can't have fun with the others? Let me out already. Damn it, that's exactly what worries us. Moments later, Fu's teammates left and Yuna appeared in front of the locked door. She noticed that the chains and lock were reinforced with some basic seals, but she opened them quickly anyway. When she entered the room, she saw that Fu was about to smash one of the windows. When Fu heard someone entering the room, she reacted like a child that was found with its hand in the cookie jar and quickly pretended that she obediently sat on her bed the whole time. Hee, you sure are energetic, Fu. When Fu realized that the person who entered her room was Yuna instead of one of her teammates, her face immediately lit up in joy. Yuna, it's you. Why are you here? Well, I didn't expect that a Jinchuriki would partake in the exams, so I decided to have a little chat with you to find out what you are planning. This time, Fu actually put her guard up. Why do you know about that? That was supposed to be a secret. Are you after the Nanabi? Yuna rolled her eyes when she heard Fu's words, and moments later, her body was coated in red, bubbling chakra. Seriously, why does no one even bother reading the bingo book? I don't think there is any better way to gain information about dangerous people than reading through that thing. Anyway, as you can see, I'm the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki, and I only came here to chat with a fellow Jinchuriki. Fu's eyes widened when she saw Yuna's chakra cloak. When she heard Yuna's explanation, she dropped her guard against Yuna while a wide smile reappeared on her face. She was just about to continue speaking when the sound of people fighting reached the room. Yuna spread her senses and clicked her tongue in annoyance when she realized that there was a brawl in the dining room below her. What are those idiots doing? Although I didn't say it, I think it is rather obvious that fighting between the tests is forbidden. Sorry, Fu. I will stop the fight and then we can continue talking. Without saying another word, Yuna disappeared from where she stood, leaving a pouting Fu behind. That sounds fun. I want to go as well. Fu glanced at the window she wanted to destroy before Yuna entered the room, and after a short moment of thinking about it, she shrugged her shoulders. She stood up and walked towards the window and smashed it apart without a moment of hesitation. Hee, this should be fun. Chapter 237, Yuna's new skill. While Yuna was chatting with Fu, most genin teens entered the dining area to grab something to eat. Unfortunately, there was a small problem. Oi, are you serious? Will there be even something left for us after that guy is done? I don't think I want to eat anything after he walked past the food table anyway. One of the Kusa shinobi was fat beyond reason. He was not only 2 meters in height but width as well and was constantly sweating. A few people tried to push him away when he approached the food, but the damage was already done as his sweat spread over the food. People started blaming each other, and moments later, a brawl started. Hisoko looked at the spectacle in front of her and could only smile wryly. She glanced at Karen and Sai, who were standing next to her with an annoyed expression on their faces, and started speaking. "Oh, are we the only ones who carry food with us?" Karen chuckled when she heard Hisoka's words before shaking her head in denial. "I am sure most of them have food pills with them, but not everyone has someone like Yunasama as their sensei. Those seals that store and preserve food are no joke. I heard that Konoha uses a few dozen of them to keep a strategic food reserve in case a war breaks out. That is not something normal genin could ever get their hands on. Yunasama is the greatest after all tilde." At first, Hisoko wanted to acknowledge Karen's words, but when she suddenly switched modes and started praising Yuna, she decided to ignore her. It's not like Karen could hear anyone, except for Yuna, speaking to her when she is like this, anyway. The brawl continued, and just when people were about to pull out their weapons, powerful killing intent flooded the room, resulting in every single person freezing up on the spot. Oh my. Although I didn't explicitly tell you not to fight, I think that was rather obvious. A young woman with red and blue hair appeared in the middle of the room and let her gaze wander over the room. Every time her eyes landed on someone, that person would tremble in fear. Moments later, the powerful killing intent vanished and a smirk appeared on Yuna's face. "Anyway, it seems like dinner time is over, so you should. ****. A young woman with green hair and brown skin broke through the window and landed on the floor. ****Hirian. Seem like you have already started the party, but that is fine. It's time for me to make 100 friends. No wait, I already made one, so I only need 99 more." Yuna could only shake her head at Fu's upbeat personality. Seriously, are all Jinchuriki weirdos? Gaara was an insane psychopath killer, and Fu is too upbeat for her own good. Oh well, Naruto and I are normal, so I guess only half of the ones I know are weirdos. Okay, hold on. Friends? Yes, no. Although Fu got 2 opposing answers to a question, after a short moment of pondering, she concluded that Gaara was simply shy and didn't want to admit being friends with Yuna. As a young man, he was undoubtedly embarrassed by having a female friend. Moments later, an elephant-sized fox with 9 tails and a mixture of red, blue, and white fur strolled out of the forest. Although Kurama's original size was much bigger than this, his smaller form made it much easier to move around, so he occasionally used it. Yuna has been helping him refine his chakra for quite a while now, and the more they're refined, the easier it was to control. Previously, it would have been impossible to change forms like that, but now it was relatively easy to do. I might be lazy, but at least I am not a degenerate like you. You have been praising me a lot lately. You're almost making me blush with all those compliments. Sometimes I wonder why I even keep trying. Only by defying the heavens can one reach the apex. Yeah, doubt this, heaven that. I got it. While Yuna and Kurama were talking with each other, Gaara and Fu were busy picking their jaws off the ground. Gaara has heard a lot of ridiculous stuff about Yuna, but this tops all of it. Not only was she casually chatting with the Kyuubi, but it was also rather apparent that he wasn't sealed anymore. He almost fainted when he realized that an unsealed Kyuubi is currently very close to Tsunade. I knew she was insane, but I completely underestimated how far gone she really is. But why isn't the Kyuubi making a move? Now that the seal is gone, he should be capable of leaving Yuna's body. Why isn't he doing it? After contemplating a bit more, Gaara came up with a possible explanation which caused his already pale face to pale even further. He is staying willingly. But why? Impossible. Did they become friends? That's beyond impossible. Meanwhile, Fu was looking from Kurama to Yuna and then back to Kurama, and the more the duo talked, the wider her smiled became. At first, she was just as shocked as Gaara by the sudden appearance of the Kyuubi, but after Yuna started chatting with him, most of that fear started vanishing. Now, there was something else that piqued her curiosity. Are you two friends? Yes, no. Yet again, she received two opposing answers, but just like the last time it happened, she decided that the Kyuubi must be shy and didn't want to admit being friends with Yuna. As an ancient being, he is undoubtedly embarrassed by having such a young friend. While Fu came up with her own conclusion, Gaara almost had a stroke when Yuna happily admitted to being friends with the Kyuubi. Although the Kyuubi denied it, Gaara felt like he was only denying it out of spite instead of actually meaning it. While Fu and Gaara were deep in thought, Yuna realized something else. Oh right, do you mind if I tell those two your name? Since we will be meeting Shikako, it doesn't matter anyway. The moment he sees me, he will yell out my name, so we might as well get that out of the way now. Haha, all right. Fu, Gaara, this here is Kurama. We have been friends for quite a while now. Although an annoyed scowl appeared on Kurama's face, he didn't deny Yuna's claim of being friends this time. While Gaara's brain was being overloaded by the information he just heard, a huge smile appeared on Fu's face. Since Yuna became friends with a bijou, it should be possible for her as well, right? If she could befriend the Nanabi, there would always at least be one friend with her. Apparently, Yuna wanted to meet the Nanabi anyway, so Fu had something else to do for now. Ha ha ha, nice to meet you, Kurama. Let's become friends. No. Yeah. Don't be like that. Come on, let's be friends. No. How mean, Tilda? It's still a no. A pout appeared on Fu's face as she continued pestering Kurama with friend requests, which were all shot down by him. Meanwhile, Gaara watched Fu casually bugging Kurama like it was no big deal, and he couldn't help but chuckle. Hee hee, am I the weird one? Is it normal to casually speak with an ancient monster that can easily destroy a country? It must be, after all, two people in front of me are doing so. I can still understand Yuna, she is insane, after all. But how come Fu happily joined the conversation? Well, I was somewhat isolated for most of my life, so this must be normal, right?